Top 10 good Pokemon? I thought this was the strongest Pokemon series. Well, here's the problem. Generation 8 is so power crept, you can't only do a top 10, and you're going to see why top 20 isn't possible. Because putting Urshifu, Regieleki, Spectrier, Blood Moon Ursaluna, and Basculegion in the same list as the normie Pokemon from the region just doesn't work or make sense. And there's some solid Pokemon that deserve recognition, but Generation 8 is a mess. Let me show you with number 10, Falinks. So, the theme of Generation 8 from Game Freak is to just put some kind of crazy gimmick on every Pokemon and let them fight it out. Falinks has one of the most insane moves ever made in Pokemon with no retreat, because it gets +1 to everything. And it can't switch out. Who cares? It gets +1 to everything. Problem, its stats let it down because Game Freak didn't want this Pokemon to go too insane. So 65 hit points, 60 special defense, that's not even that good with +1 special defense. 75 speed doesn't put you in a good +1 tier, even on Jolly, and then 100 attack is kinda mid. But at the end of the day, the Pokemon's getting +1 to all of its stats. It's usable, and I think it's a good place for like 10th good Galar Pokemon. Number 9, we got Polteageist, because Shell Smash. If a Pokemon has Shell Smash and can sweep, it's going to be a threat. And Polteageist is a pretty good threat. 134 on the special attack, 70 on the speed means it's going to outspeed a lot. And then it's kind of like a reverse Cloyster, but Cloyster has like a ridiculous defense, so it can revenge into a special attacker, set up, and then just win the game. It's a really scary Shell Smash Pokemon, and it demands respect. Number 8, we got Grimmsnarl. Prankster's just an insane ability. Like, you don't even have to know anything about Pokemon and be like, wait a second, status moves get priority. So you can do whatever you want with your opponent, but then it's on Game Freak to clamp the moveset and also the stats. That 95, 65, 75, okay, this thing doesn't get to be too ridiculous of a tank, but it has a good amount of stuff it can do. Like, oh, Prankster Bulk Up. Okay, now the stats make sense, because you can't let that run away immediately with the game. And it can also Drain Punch for some sustain, Spirit Break is a cool stab move, and then it has Taunt. So it's a Prankster that wants to play around like status and setup that locks out the opponent from their own status and setup with priority, which tanks usually don't get. Now, as a Prankster Pokemon, it does have the weird interaction of not being able to taunt Dark Pokemon, even if Grimmsnarl would be faster because of the nerf to Prankster. And again, you can just kind of see Game Freak kind of trying to keep Prankster in check. But also it has enough stats to where Prankster Light Screen, Prankster Reflect, that's happening. And then it can do kind of whatever else it wants with the other two move slots. So, good setup Pokemon, good versatile Pokemon. Prankster is strong. Next up, we got Kleavor. So, Kleavor, with the sharpness 135 attack, just hurts. It can be one of the craziest banded wall-breaking Pokemon out there because X-Scissor, Stab, Choice Band, and Sharpness is a lot of damage to add into a Pokemon, or you can put a Choice Scarf on it, and then you're kind of like Galarian Darmanitan, like, oh, 135 attack. If you're using Sharpness boosted moves, it's kind of like having a Choice Band on everything. And then you can just swing for big damage. The Bug Rock typing doesn't feel that great, but also gives you an interesting stab boosted angle where that dual typing actually works into quite a lot. Now, I don't think Stone Axe is that crazy because it has a low base power, but if you can like two-shot something with it where you go Stone Axe, survive, because, oh, 70 hit points, 95 defense. Kinda can't just KO it physically, and then Stone Axe again. I guess it worked out for everyone, because now you got a KO, you went 1-for-1 plus with a Stealth Rocks up, and then you can also switch out Kleavor and then bring it back in for like the big X-Scissor finishes. It's a scary Pokemon that can just do a lot of damage and has options to either outspeed or wall break. Number 6, we have Alcremie, and here's another weird fairy-type Pokemon that seems like it should work. So, similar stats to Florges, but it's a low hit point defense. So you go to the Clefairy route. Max hit points, max defense, bold nature. It's not going to go down to special attacks. It can go Calm Mind. And then it actually sets up kind of quick and scary with the 110 special attack. So Calm Mind, Draining Kiss with Recover. Also, it gets Acid Armor, so it's reverse Curse Amnesia, which is one of the best tank setup combos in the game. And yet the Pokemon doesn't work. It feels like there should be room for this in the top 10 strongest, best, busted Galar Pokemon. One that shows how crazy the next video is going to be. Like, comment, subscribe, share, check out the playlist for all my other guides and getting into competitive. And the crazy thing about Alcremie is it has the Aroma Veil. This is the dream setup tank Pokemon because it's immune to Taunt and Encore, which everyone is running now in Generation 9 because setup tank Pokemon are so terrifying. Toxapex lands, go stockpile, game is over. You don't stop Clefairy from getting Calm Mind, game is over. You don't stop Gargantuar from getting Iron Defense, game can be over really easily. And a lot of things are even teching in the Psychic Noise to just make sure that Sustain and Stall does not exist inside of Pokemon anymore. So why doesn't Alcremie work? I've tried to make it work, maybe I haven't tried hard enough. I feel like I've just thrown it out there in several different compositions at several different times on the Battle Stadium, and it can have success, but every time I'm just like, huh, the Fable does better. Oh, this was actually a Blissey angle because that's just the best Pokemon ever. So I don't know what's going on. Is it actually fraudulent? Despite having all the pieces on paper, it is the best tank Pokemon, but it just kind of falls apart. Or maybe I've just been really unlucky, bad meta timings, maybe just bad luck into team compositions. But it's a Pokemon to keep an eye out for. Like, if this thing actually gets momentum or starts working at some point, that's like, hey, guess what? It was actually one of the best Pokemon ever all along. But keep it in your mind, because it does stop what everyone else is trying to stop with that Taunt and Encore. For number 5, we have Corsola, and this is a really weird Pokemon. Now, I don't consider it like a really strong or really good Pokemon because of its crazy signature ability where if a Pokemon makes contact with it, they get the Perish effect on them. That's really good, but I don't think it like shatters this Pokemon or makes it like too crazy. It's just a nice thing to have because, oh, you got no hit points, you have no defense. It's kind of like if Blissey put Perish on a Pokemon because, yeah, you get hit by one of those, Corsola goes down, but at least you're getting a free turn or a free KO at some point, which is nice. But what makes Corsola a really good Pokemon is that special attack. You have 145 special attack with the 130 special defense. Congratulations, you just hard win trades into every special attacking Pokemon, and you can even do something like Choice Specs with crazy coverage, and that demands respect. That it's a good revenge Pokemon, it's a good lead because, okay, they're either setting up so you get to annihilate them with special attack damage, or if they have a physical attacker, well, if they hit you, now you're kind of disrupting their setup, and maybe with max hit points, you survive some things, sometimes kinda. And if it's special attacker, you just completely run them over, and even special tanks don't want to switch into it. So the opponent doesn't have too many options, but at the same time, Corsola is very slow and pretty vulnerable. It can be disruptive. Also, if it's locked into Choice Specs, the opponent might revenge with something that forces you out, and now the momentum is kind of equalized. And while I don't consider Mega Pokemon for the power rankings of this list, I do acknowledge that the Pokemon have to go against Megas. And there's a lot of physical attackers that then creep into just KOing this thing, and there's not much you can do about it. So it's vulnerable, but very powerful. And shows like a weird gimmick angle of Generation 8, where, okay, we're going to make this Pokemon ridiculously overtuned in one or two areas, but then we're just going to give it a hard counter. The opponent brings it, your Pokemon doesn't exist. If they don't bring it, you get a huge advantage or just straight up win the game. For number 4, we have Inteleon. And that's mostly because special attackers are in a really weird spot that you look at Inteleon and you go, 120 speed, that's good, I'll just catch everything. 125 special attack, and it's a water Pokemon, so if you can kind of gimmick into the Torrent in some kind of way, you are very threatening. The problem is that Special Sweeper speed creep has just gotten insane, and also with Fairy-type Pokemon, there's just a lot of good special defense tanks out there. Like, okay, Primarina's in the game. Your Inteleon is not able to do anything about that, and it's just super unfortunate. Such as the type of Pokemon and the type of power creep, because we look at Paradox Pokemon. Oh, yeah, we got Iron Bundle and Fluttermane to deal with now. Go back to the previous generation. I'd rather just have a Naganadel and then have a great situation to go a nasty plot in. And then because there's a lot of like bulk and setup, oh yeah, Inteleon can just get walled out by something going Calm Mind really easily. So to deal with that, you should bring a Hydreigon instead, or why are you not running Volcarona, just landing in the battle using Quiver Dance and then auto-winning the game? The Pokemon has power. It's maybe undiscovered power because no one wants to run it with so many better options, and I think it might have some good angles, but at the same time, the creep in the game has been absolutely insane and unfair to this Pokemon. So we can go into number 3 and number 2. I'm putting Rillaboom and Cinderace at the same amount of power, so you can switch between them however you want, because Rillaboom brings grassy terrain, and then Grassy Glide is ridiculous, and it's so ridiculous, it's gotten crazy nerfs. So it went from 70 base power to 60 base power to 55, but you're still getting Stab, Grassy Terrain boosted on Priority. And Priority is the name of the game, because as we've discussed throughout the series, there's a lot of Pokemon that they can set up, and if you don't have Priority, you lose the game. So Rillaboom is a really strong lead, really strong every stage of the game Pokemon, because like it revenges, it comes in, and now it has to force whatever else is out, because it just can't deal with that smoke. It also has really good coverage with the Choice Band, so it can just hurt all kinds of Pokemon, or find a super effective hit, or you knock off a tank, and that gives you enough room to switch out, reset your Grassy Terrain, and then still threaten a Choice Band Grassy Glide that a lot of Pokemon don't want to deal with. But then we got Cinderace. So Libero got nerfed, but it has Sucker Punch. So again, Priority is the name of the game. The 119 speed is good enough, but it also like kind of doesn't exist. Anything between like 100 and 130 speed, you're just in a no man's land. But it's also nice to have that, hey, maybe they crept into something, maybe they just have more bulky Pokemon. And then being able to outspeed most Pokemon, or if the opponent has like a stray semi-sweeper around 110, you just outspeed it and hit it with a 120 Pyro Ball. Yeah, Cinderace actually hurts. So yeah, those are pretty strong Pokemon, maybe even meta at times, but again, the next part of this list is going to get too wild. Honorable mentions, we got Dracovish. Dracovish kind of has the same feel as Galarian Darmanitan in a way, that Galarian Darmanitan in Galar in Generation 8 is actually a terrible Pokemon because it doesn't work with Dynamax and it's cancelled by Dynamax. Same thing for Dracovish. So I'm also wondering, like, is this Pokemon going to get some kind of nerf to offset that? Because, oh, when the opponent can't Dynamax to just soak up a Vicious Rend and then one-shot it, now it's actually kind of scary. And the way it wall breaks is also really crazy, but I think it also has that, like, super overrated element behind it, because, yeah, people talk about how one-shots Toxapex in rain with Choice Band. Now you need that setup, and now you also need to make it to where Vicious Rend Choice Band doesn't get outsped by anything. But then it shows the design, that this Pokemon is incredibly narrow, but incredibly sharp. Even with, like, Choice Scarf, it has crazy damage, but can get, like, walled out and then countered and revenged, or you hit it with Priority and then it's feeling really bad. So if it has everything lined up for it, it's devastating, and it will stomp mid-range players. But at the same time, if, like, one thing goes wrong, this Pokemon doesn't exist, and it's no threat. But it also has more threat now, depending on how the Dynamax Mega Terra situation is going to go for Pokemon Champions. So, honorable mention, keep an eye on it. And that brings us to the strongest not busted Pokemon in Galar. And this is where I want to see the comments down below. What Pokemon do you think it is? And what is your reaction to Eiscue? Because this Pokemon has had a ride throughout the generation. Remember at the very beginning where people went, wait a second, this thing needs to be banned. It's unacceptable because it gets a free belly drum and then it wins the game. And then looking at the Pokemon stats, yeah, that really comes together because you have Substitute, which is also really good into tank Pokemon if they try to status you, and then like Belly Drum Substitute, that puts you in Salac Berry range, and then you just have like the most untouchable sweeper ever with a +6 on its attack from that Belly Drum. Then you just go Icicle Crash, Waterfall, and one-shot most things. So it's not the greatest coverage, and you can get walled out, but it's still a very dangerous and threatening Pokemon, and then no one ever used it. But chat, this is not why Eiscue is number 1 on the list. This doesn't even have consideration for why Eiscue is number 1 on the list. The reason why Eiscue is number 1 on the list is because it is the best defense Pokemon, or like anti-physical Pokemon in the entire game with its stall set. And what's weird is that this is one of the most devastating movesets I have ever seen, but I've only encountered it 2 or 3 times despite doing a ton of battles in Generation 8 on the Battle Stadium for Pokemon Sword and Shield. But I went through my streams and videos and I couldn't find the few battles with this thing to show you guys how ridiculously powerful it is. It's the ugliest moveset. It's the most disrespectful moveset in all of Pokemon, because another thing that this aims for is timer stalling. Now, timer stalling is severely unsporting, but that's not going to stop players from trying it. And even in Pokemon Sword and Shield, early on, there was time over death, so TOD strategies, and that actually is why the battle timer got increased in Pokemon Sword and Shield, because it was too easy to abuse early on. And Eiscue was like a big proponent of that, but also you still saw it after the buff to the timer, which should nerf it. There's still nothing you can do about this Pokemon if you only have physical attackers, or if it just hides behind a Blissey or something. It's a more insane infinite than Gliscor, so you got Sub Protect with the leftovers, and then you can just Snowscape to refresh your Ice Face to get the free sub into the free protect, into whatever, while an Aqua Ring is going. It just has infinite health against physical Pokemon. Aside from that weird infinite battle thing that people were doing with Slowbro back in the day, this is the Infinity Stall Ultra Pokemon you can't do anything about. And it's just going to make you watch for the next 15-20 minutes while that timer runs out, and then you just can't do anything about it. It is some of the most helpless I have ever felt in Pokemon.